to Lecture 19, where we will go over the reproductive system. Animals can have many reproductive strategies in order to produce offspring. These include asexual reproduction, which does not involve the fusion of the sperm and the egg, or sexual reproduction, which involves fusion of the sperm and the egg that leads to the formation of a diploid zygote. Note there are also reproductive strategies within sexual reproductive means. These include hermaphrodism, where one individual can produce both male and female gametes, having separate sexes where the male produces sperm and the female produces eggs, and also having external and internal fertilization. Asexual reproduction produces offspring without the fusion of the egg and the sperm. Rather, it usually relies on mitotic cell division to form the offspring. This can result from many mechanisms, such as budding, fragmentation, fission, and parthenogenesis. In budding, new individuals or offspring result from outgrowths from the parent. This is very common in invertebrates with simple body plans like the hydra. Fragmentation occurs when fragments of the parent break off and can regenerate to form independent individuals. This is common in annelids, sponges, and cnidarians. Fission occurs when the parent organism can split into two individuals. This is commonly found in invertebrates such as coral polyps. And finally, parthenogenesis occurs when eggs develop in the absence of fertilization. These eggs may be haploid or diploid depending on the life strategy of the organism. This type of reproduction is common in bees, wasps, ants. However, it is very rare in vertebrates. Sexual reproduction, on the other hand, involves the fusion of haploid gametes, usually male sperm and female eggs, to form a diploid zygote. In hermaphrodism, an individual has both reproductive systems, and as a result, they have the ability to produce both types of gametes. This can be an evolutionary adaptation to allow for sexual reproduction, particularly in environments or during times when mates may be limited or very difficult to find. Hermaphrodism allows for any two individuals to mate, or for one individual to self-fertilize itself. This mode of reproduction is more common in sessile animals such as barnacles and parasitic worms. The bluehead wrasse, for instance, lives in harems with one male surrounded by multiple females. When the dominant male dies, the largest female actually transforms into a male and then begins to defend the territory, maintaining the harem. In pearl oysters, most oysters begin as males and transition to females as they age. This can actually aid the population as larger females have an increased fitness. In general, the rule with many invertebrates is the larger the individual, particularly the larger the female, the more eggs they could produce, thus increasing their fitness. Hormones play a very critical role in controlling reproductive cycles, as well as mating behavior in both asexual and asexual animals. Many of these cycles can be seasonal or dependent upon diel cycles or daily cycles, as well as other environmental cues. Examples of these cycles include ovulation cycles or the release of eggs in ewes. This typically occurs in fall and winter to ensure that the newborn lambs are born in the spring when resources are most plentiful. Climate change has impacted many populations, particularly the caribou. Climate change has contributed to a mismatch between the caribou and their migration patterns and their reproductive cycles. In their typical life cycle, as the daily length increases, herds will typically migrate to calving grounds where the vegetation is plentiful. However, due to climate change, warmer temperatures have caused the vegetation to sprout much earlier than normal. This causes the restriction of the nutritious resources and leads to a decrease in the overall fitness for the herd. This is because the herd has not yet adapted to the effects that are caused due to climate change. Many animals can switch from asexual to asexual reproduction during times of stress or vice versa. For instance, the female water flea, like this Daphnia species seen below, typically reproduces asexually and produces clones through parthenogenesis when conditions are favorable. However, if they are experiencing stress conditions or resources become limited, the females will release eggs that instead need fertilization. Take a look at the diagram to the right to understand the difference between the asexual pathways and sexual pathways. In addition, some species may have adapted to asexual reproduction. However, if this is a recent evolutionary adaptation, they still may exhibit some behaviors from their evolutionary past. Aspedoceles uniparens is its asexual desert lizard species. It typically produces females from unfertilized eggs through the process of parthenogenesis. However, ovulation is still stimulated by the typical mating behavior that occurs between males and females. As a result, females will switch mating roles and exhibit male behavior after ovulation when estradiol levels drop and progesterone levels are high. These cycles are similar to species that carry out sexual reproduction. Mating behaviors maximize reproductive success, supporting the hypothesis that these strategies evolved from sexually reproducing ancestors. Take a look at the diagram to the right to understand the role of estradiol and progesterone in the ovulation and mating behavior of these species. In general, sexual reproduction is considered much more energetically costly and is also more riskier than asexual reproductive methods. In general, asexual reproduction is considered to be most advantageous in optimal environments. This is because it favors the perpetuation of the most successful genotype that is already in the population. However, when adverse conditions arise, sexual reproduction may become the most advantageous strategy. This is because sexual reproduction can increase the genetic diversity. This allows for varied genotypes for natural selection to act upon. This will then optimize the survival of the species. In addition, genetic recombination typically increases adaptation rates. This is particularly evident in smaller populations. In addition, gene shuffling can also rid the population of any harmful genes that are present. Thus, there are many advantages to both asexual as well as sexual reproductive pathways. Fertilization specifically refers to the union of sperm and egg that occurs during sexual reproduction. During sexual reproduction, fertilization can occur external or it can occur internal. In external fertilization, eggs are typically released into the environment and then fertilized by the male sperm. This mode of reproduction requires a moist and aquatic habitat in order to prevent desiccation of the gametes. Populations and species may have distinct mating times where gametes are shed synchronously, or they may have individuals that may have extensive courtship displays to aid in the fertilization success. Internal fertilization, on the other hand, occurs when eggs are held and fertilized internally after the sperm is deposited in or near the female reproductive tract. This is typically seen as an adaptation that allows for fertilization to occur in much drier environments such as the terrestrial landscape. In general, males have copulatory organs that help deliver sperm, and females have receptacles for the storage or delivery of sperm to the eggs. In addition, during sexual reproduction, many animals produce species-specific pheromones. This will help to aid in mate location and also to synchronize any mating or copulatory behaviors to ensure and maximize their reproductive success. When considering the difference between internal and external fertilization, there's typically an evolutionary trade-off that is seen. Animals that have internal fertilization typically produce fewer gametes than those with external fertilization. However, the trade-off is that internal fertilization typically has higher survival rates for the offspring. This is due to many reasons that include, but aren't limited to, the fact that many have embryonic layers or shells that will help to protect and nourish the embryo during development. Many species that have internal fertilization may have part or all of the embryo development that occurs within the female reproductive tract. This can be seen in marsupials as well as eutherians or placental mammals. Many species also have some sort of parental care, either for the eggs or offspring, and many also protect their offspring or eggs from predation. For instance, giant water bug females produce fewer eggs in general and glue them to the backs of their males to keep them aerated, moist, and also to prevent predation and also parasitic infections, thus increasing their overall success. In sexual reproduction, the pregametic cells are usually present within the developing embryo. However, they remain inactive until the organism matures. Chemical signals will then stimulate the development of the gametes. Animals may have specialized organs called gonads for gamete production. However, these may or may not be present in all organisms. For instance, some polychaete worms form gametes simply from special precursor cells that line the coelom. Eggs are then released through an excretory opening or by piercing through the body wall. In general, more complex reproductive systems typically have accessory organs to aid in the reproductive process. For instance, many female insects have spermathecae to store sperm. These are specialized sacs that lay between the uterus and the oviduct. Many female insects also have a last in, first out rule, which determines which male successfully fertilizes the most eggs as they are deposited. Typically, it is the last male that they mate with that has the highest reproductive success. Females also can choose to release the sperm when conditions favor offspring survival. Vertebrates in general show many variations with respect to their reproductive systems. For instance, vertebrates can show diversity in the actual shape of the uterus. Dogs and cats have what is termed a bicornuate or two-horned uterus. This allows for more embryos to attach to, while humans typically have one chamber. A bicornuate uterus is considered to be a uterine malformation that does occur in some humans. However, people with this condition typically have higher rates of miscarriage and preterm births. Many non-mammalian vertebrates have what is termed the cloaca. The cloaca serves as an opening for multiple systems, which typically include the reproductive, digestive, and excretory system. The cloaca is seen in the image below here. Most mammals have separate openings for the excretory and reproductive systems.